And today's goal is to just show you guys what you need. Everybody knows people. And, if you just put a list together, and I'll show you the states that we're in, we'll show you what kind of information you need. We're going to show you how to put it into our systems, show you how to present it. And if you need someone to help you present it, we're available. We also have sales reps available if there's a scheduling conflict. And our goal ultimately is to help you get your first couple sales under your belt. Um, you don't need to know it all to be successful in this business, and you're going to learn a ton over the course of the next year. We've been in solar a year and a half, and there's just a ton of information, but you don't need to know all of it to be able to have success. In fact, the simpler you make it, the easier you're going to find it's going to be for you to make sales. Solar makes sense. It's a logical decision. It's not an emotional one. And in the grand scheme of things, when you think about it, we're increasing people's discretionary income by lowering their monthly bills, right? It wouldn't make sense to switch to solar if we were more expensive. We are cheaper than the utility. When people say, oh, I don't know if I can afford to go solar. If you can afford your utility bill, you can afford to go solar. It's just that simple. And we're going to increase their property value. So you're going to find there's no reasonable objection to not go solar. I'm shocked that we don't have 100% closing ratio. I don't understand when somebody says they're not interested. And we're going to cover some of the ways to handle those objections. We're going to cover a few different closes today and show you guys how to present. But you guys all have a background in sales. You're with BidPoint. This is not going to be difficult for you. And so what we're going to do is put a list together. We're going to reach out to people. We're going to get a bill. We're going to show you what to do with the bill. And then we're going to show you how to present the savings. So before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and share screens. Let's see if I can do this correctly and make sure I am sharing the right screen. Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So real quick, we're gonna hit the highlights of solar. And most people, when you think of solar, they put a nice little picture of the home with solar panels on it. Of course, we have those, but when most people don't understand is, the whole world runs on solar. You think about television, telephone, radio, the very fact that we're tuned in right now today from our computers, whether we're on iPads, I saw people tuning in from iPads, whether you're on an iPhone or whether you're plugged into a computer, most of it's going to be Wi-Fi connection, right? And all these comm systems are powered by satellite, and we don't pull these satellites down from space and charge up the battery. I don't look out my window and see cords tethered to the heavens. These things are running 24/7 around the planet. And there's approximately 2,000 communication satellites in Earth's orbit. So you got to realize, a lot of people say, I'm waiting for the technology to change. Technology's been around since the 50s, solar technologies. There's solar panels still on the International Space Station from the 1960s that are still producing power that haven't been replaced. It's not a new technology. In fact, realistically, you can trace solar technology back all the way to the late 1800s, around about the same time the car was invented. So it just makes sense. There are some misconceptions about solar. We're going to cover those. A lot of people think that their home, when you go solar, that your home runs on solar. Your home doesn't run on solar. We're going to talk about net metering and what that means. But solar is, and it says here, one of the hottest businesses in America. The number one job right now in America is solar installation. If you get on Indeed and any of the resume type websites or hiring websites, I mean, there's just gobs and gobs and gobs of people looking for jobs in the solar installation space. U.S. solar is, when you think about it, I think it was John in Naples that said, here in Florida, solar just makes sense. If we go back to the gold rush in California, right? There was the gold rush in California. There's a solar rush here in Florida. As you look out across the landscape, more and more people, I mean, you're seeing trucks daily on the freeways. Every time we do an install, we're not the only company in the neighborhood doing the installation. There's gobs of houses already with solar, but there's so much more work to do. And there's some interesting benchmarks. If we trace this back, and you want to talk about trends and being in the right place at the right time, 1976, there was approximately 6 private homes in the U.S. that had solar. meaning they were either heated or cooled with functional solar power systems. Now that technology's changed drastically, but you know, 1976, not too terribly long ago, right? 45 years.
Hey,
But by
Chad.
2016, 40 years later,
Hey, Chad.
yeah,
I apologize for interrupting. Can you make your put your PowerPoint so this full screen?
you know what? I'm sharing the wrong screen, aren't
No, just push play and you'll be all right. I think if you just push play, you would have been fine.
I?
You were sharing. I could see it, but it was showing the side by side.
You were showing the preview screen.
So just do your
Yep,
PowerPoint again, and no, you don't have to start over. We could still see it, but it was just
that's
there. You
good.
go. That's perfect because I just
I
couldn't see.
was so
You're
forgive me.
good.
I'm running off of two monitors, and I had them switched.
Ah, got it. That's what it was. Yeah,
So
now it's perfect. Now I can read it all without my
awesome,
glasses.
awesome. Thanks for letting me know.
Yep, thanks.
Um, so 1976, then 2016, we have 1 million photovoltaic installs. PV stands for photovoltaic. We'll talk about that. It's a reaction that takes place in the panel that actually creates the electricity. But that's a huge benchmark, 1 million in 40 years, right? California represented 51% of the first million installations for PV solar in the United States. Then just 3 years later, we crossed another major milestone as an industry, 2 million PV installs. So what took us 40 years to accomplish, we did in three. This time, though, only 43% of those installs were done in the great state of California. So you're starting to see mass adoption, if you will. And honestly, 2 million homes out of however many homes there are in America, I don't even know, is minuscule in regards to the opportunity in the grand scheme of things. It's projected that by the end of this year, there will have been 3 million installs this year, 2021. So we'll do. I mean, just look at the growth potential, and then by 2023, we'll do over 4 million installs. So 7 million installs in just the next few years. The question is, the opportunity is, how many of those do you want to, do you want to be able to impact or get your hands on? And I liken this opportunity to the automobile industry. Here in the U.S., we Ford kind of took the credit for being the father of the automobile. But interestingly enough, it was Carl Benz in the late 1800s. In fact, 1886, Carl Benz was the guy that created the automobile. It was a three-wheeled vehicle, very very unique looking. It was a diesel motor, and so he basically birthed the automobile. And then by the year 1900, there's about 4,000, 4,200 vehicles on the road in the US. So if we go back 120 some years ago, there's, 4,000 vehicles on the road. If you could even call them, roads back in the 1900s, right? 1908, there was 200,000 automobiles on the road in the US. And then something amazing happened. Ford put his assembly line together, and from 1908 to 1927, he produced, manufactured, and sold 15 million automobiles. Just an amazing feat in business, and that record stood all the way up into the 1970s until Volkswagen Beetle eclipsed it. And why do I tell you that story? Because it's 1908 and we're selling Model Ts. You think about new technology, and it's solar's not new, but it's kind of new to mainstream America, right? It's new to Main Street. And, it's been expensive. It was something that was reserved for the wealthy, several years ago, but the government's gotten involved, given federal income tax credit. We're going to cover all those things today, but I share all this information with you just to let you know that mass adoption is starting to take place. More and more people are conscious about green energy, about saving the environment, regardless of what political stance you take. I promise we won't get political on this call. But solar just makes sense. And so when we created our company, SunSmart America, first and foremost, we started out as just a sales engine. Um, in fact, we started out as a company called Equity Life Solar, and SunSmart America is our DBA. But we've become advocates for the mass adoption of residential solar nationwide. Can we do stuff in the commercial sector? We can. The commercial space is a little bit different. Commissions are different. Tax credits are different. financing, all the above, all a little bit more difficult than residential. If you really truly want to soar in this industry, you're going to want to stay focused on residential. It doesn't mean we can't do commercial. Driving down, the main street out here from my house, I passed Chase Bank. There's a little franchise Chase Bank, which is just a branch office, and there's solar all over the rooftop. So there is business available for the commercial sector. It's just a little bit different. We're not going to spend a lot of time today talking about commercial. We're going to spend most of our time on residential because it's the low hanging fruit. It's what makes the most sense. And, again, doesn't mean we can't do commercial. It's just a little bit different animal. And we'll talk about that. So SunSmart is first and foremost, we're a sales engine. What do I mean by that? Well, we sell solar panels, and we're going to show you guys our systems and our platforms. But depending upon what state you're in, depends on which company is actually going to do the installation. And so if you're, in Titan is in multiple states, Infinity Energy, these are just some of the companies that we represent. We represent a whole bunch of companies. So if you're in Michigan or Colorado, there might be a different company that we use. I list these 6 because, they're the biggest ones. They're the ones that we send the most business through, so to speak. Titan Solar Power, based out of Phoenix, Arizona, Mesa, Arizona, actually the largest residential solar company nationwide. Infinity Energy, located out in California. They're primarily in Texas, in California. So I know we have a couple people tuning in from Texas, or one's tuning in from Ohio, but soon to be going to Texas. You might be putting business through Infinity, or you might be putting business through Titan. And you're going to say, well, how do I pick and choose? We're not going to get real dialed in on all the nuances on all the different platforms. We're going to cover one platform and make it simple for everybody. And then if you have a unique scenario, you can run it by us, somebody on our management team or somebody who's going to be able to assist you and maybe tweak it or find a better solution with another company that might be better for the customer. And you can kind of learn, those nuances by just doing, because there's no way we could train on all these different platforms and you guys be efficient. So we're going to stay focused on one platform today, which is Solo. We can use it across the board for most of these companies, because at the end of the day, what really makes everything work is the banks. And you're going to see this as we go through today and give some working examples. You're going to see what I'm talking about. But we represent multiple companies in myriad of different states. Here's some of the banking relationships that we have. LoanPal, for example, Titan. They're exclusive to LoanPal. You can't use another bank. If you're going to sell a job through Titan, your customer is going to have a LoanPal agreement unless they're a cash customer. They do have some very unique products that are exclusive to Titan. 1.49% APR usually. We're going to talk about some of these. They've got some very unique interest-only options that can be stretched out all the way to 3 years. So your customer might have an interest-only payment for 36 months, which is going to create a tremendous amount of savings. We're going to give those examples and show the differences between those later on today. We're going to show the dealer fees associated with that. We're going to explain a lot. In fact, what we're going to cover today, I didn't learn until my 8th, 9th, 10th month in this business, because the industry primarily wants to just hire people, pay them X amount of dollars a kilowatt. They don't train them really well, and they don't teach them all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, because they realize once you find out the secrets, if you will, then you really don't need them, and you might find a better contract elsewhere. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about our compensation plan, because I don't really know of anybody else that puts more money to the grid than we do, the pay structure. And we'll end today with that. But these banks, LoanPal, Sonova, Sunrun, Mosaic, Sunlight Financial, we have many other options, but these are the big ones. LoanPal, you need a 650 or high credit score to get approved. LoanPal 600 above to get approved. Sonova is 650. If you're over a 700, and this gets back into talking about the different companies that we use. For example, Sonova has a 0.99 APR. if you're a 700 or higher credit score. So you might have quoted a deal with Titan here in Florida or Texas and quoted at Loan Pal, got them approved, found out they're a 715 and they're already ready to sign. And you say, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we got you approved with Loan Pal. However, we do have another installation company, because remember I said Titan is exclusive to Loan Pal. You may just not want to say anything and just sign on the dotted line, but sometimes when you become an advocate for the customer and you have the customer's best interest, you might want to say, you know what, since we just found out that you're over 700, I actually have a 0.99 rate. Would you like to look at that? And maybe we do an agreement and maybe a different company installs it and we go with a different bank. And we're going to show working examples of that here in just a little bit. But that's one of the reasons why we have multiple banks. We don't want to be a one size fits all. We don't want to be this box, so to speak, that we just try to cram everybody into. And primarily in solar, as in any business, you get better deals based on volume. And so smaller solar companies are going to focus on just putting business into one installation company because they're going to base their price points on volume. We've been fortunate enough to have relationships and we get to kind of aggregate all of our business. We have partners, so to speak, like Infinity Energy, where they allow us to piggyback on their volume, which in turn gives us the same type of deals that we have with like Lone Pal, Sonova, Sunrun, Mosaic, which we're bringing on board and we're going to start using here primarily in Florida. Towards the end of this month, we're going to be using almost Mosaic 100% exclusively. Doesn't mean you can't use Lone Power Sonova, but there's some reasons why. We're going to announce some promos and stuff coming up here in November and December. But so these are the banks. There are other ways. You don't always have to finance it this way. You can do things through equity. There are programs like PACE, which is preferred property assessed clean energy. So maybe somebody doesn't pass credit. Maybe they're a little challenge credit. This, with everything that we just went through with COVID and people being furloughed and unemployment and those kind of things. If they have equity in their home, they might be able to do what's called property assessed clean energy, where they can actually purchase it and by getting a loan through equity in their home. We don't do a lot of those, but they are available if and when is needed. We're not going to train a lot on that today. It's a separate training that we'll do. And we're going to be putting that up on our boot camp as well. We're going to have the folks from that organization do the training. Pretty convoluted. I would say, let's get you really understanding solar. Let's get you really understanding the processes here before, and then you can, if you have somebody that fails credit, you can kind of maybe put that on the sidelines, get the information that you need, and then come back to them and sign them up at a later date. So here's some of the states that we're in business in. I know it says Michigan. We actually the company that we were using in Michigan wasn't doing things in a timely manner, and I haven't changed the slide. We're looking for a new sub, so to speak, in Michigan. So, but we're in Florida, Illinois, South Carolina, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maryland, Connecticut. The list goes on and on. I think we're in every single state. Only the caveat would be Michigan. That everybody is represented on this call. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be selling Titan in every one of those states. You might use Suntuity. For example, the guy that's tuning in from New Jersey, one of our partners up in Jersey is a company called Suntuity. We send a tremendous amount of business through them. That's probably who you would be using in New Jersey. You can still use all the platforms that we're going to train on today, and we'll talk about some of the different way you structure a deal or how you would transition over to a different bank. Now, why solar? There's 5 main reasons why people go solar. One's not any more important than the other. When we go through the presentation a little bit later, you're gonna pay extreme close attention to what interests the customer most, because the customer is going to tell you what part of this they're most interested in. But here's the main reasons why people go solar. Number one, federal income tax credit. 26% of the costs of going solar are covered by the federal government. Now, how does that work? What does that mean? It's not a tax deduction. It is literally a dollar for dollar ITC, income tax credit, which means if you buy a, you know, let's just make it easy math, $20,000 solar system, 26% of that cost, or roughly $5,200, is going to be credited to you. Okay. So if you have a $10,000 that you owe in taxes, or that you paid in taxes, then the federal government's going to write you a check and send $5,200 back to you. It is a return of the taxes that you paid or that you owe. If you're 1099 and you owe $20,000 at the end of the year and you got a $5,000 tax credit, you're only going to owe 15. That's the way the tax credit works. Does anybody have any questions as it pertains to the tax credit? I know it's a common area where people have questions, don't necessarily understand how it works, but
Yeah, Chad.
yeah, go ahead.
So the tax credit, like say you bought solar this year, but obviously you're paying for it down throughout the year. Does the tax credit cover the whole cost of the solar panel in 1 year, or is it spread out throughout the years?
Yeah, so it actually, we configure that. Great question. We configure that into your payment. So it's already, and you're going to be able to click a button and determine whether or not you want to keep the tax credit or whether you want to apply it to the loan. We're going to do a presentation. We're going to do an illustration here in just a little bit. And I'm going to, that's going to get super, super clear in just a moment when we can show a working example of that. But it does not count towards the payment. It'll actually make your payment lower if that's what the customer chooses. Good question.
Chad, can I ask a quick question before I forget?
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of home builders are offering this to build your house with solar. Should we be going after home builders?
It's another great question. So here in Florida, for example, in Miami-Dade, started January of this year, you can't build a new build in the state or in the city of Miami-Dade County. You can't put a new build up or get plans on a new build without solar being in it. California, January 2020, you couldn't build a new build in the state of California without solar being on the rooftop. So the builders are starting to put solar on people's rooftops. You know, they're going to, you know, wholesale companies like where we get our supplies from. They're buying wholesale and they're paying their guys, you know, to hook it up. Here's the thing about that though. I've got a good buddy of mine who I'm talking to right now. In fact, he's the reason I'm in Florida, who just built a new house and the builder put 6 solar panels on his house. So, you know, to offset his electric bill, but he's only offsetting it. So the builder got some tax credit, but the way we do it is there's no way to be able to determine, and the utility company disallows it. Like, because of net metering, you actually have to get permission to operate. So when we put these programs together, it's based on somebody's current usage. And they very rarely will approve a system that's bigger than it needs to be. Utility companies don't want to buy power from you. One of the gentlemen earlier talked about how Florida Power and Light was going solar, and they're starting to advertise because they're losing a tremendous amount of business, and they know people are interested in green energy. So they are, you know, trying to manipulate people into thinking that they're getting green energy. I'm going to show you in a second how you can't determine whether or not you're getting power or not from whether it be from solar or fossil fuels. There's just no way to do that. But does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I got you.
So the number 2 reason why people go solar is you get to own your own power. You think about the whole reason we buy our houses is we don't want to rent and pay, you know, build equity for somebody else, right? Well, right now, most people rent their power from the utility company, and the utility company is the landlord and they control the price. You can now own your own solar system at a price per month less than you're currently buying energy from. You know, it just that's like saying if you're renting somewhere and you can buy a house for cheaper than you're paying rent, why would you not buy a house, right? Now, the only reason you wouldn't buy a house is you don't qualify to buy a house for whatever reason. The only reasonable objection to not go solar is because you can't afford to go solar. Like when I say afford, you don't qualify to go solar, meaning your credit for whatever reason, or maybe your house is covered with trees, and that's the one thing. You got to have sun exposure for it to make sense, or the math doesn't work. And that's a simple math question. If we're not saving you money, don't go solar. At some point in the future, as prices continue to go up with energy costs, at some point in the future, it's going to be cheaper for you to go solar, but maybe not right now. Very rare circumstance. A lot of times, guys, I know this is going to sound funny because we're a green company, and one of the reasons why people go solar is because of the environmental impact. But I can't tell you how many trees we cut down or have cut down because a customer wants to go solar, and they're like, hey, that tree's in the way, and the customer's like, rip it down. And there are some people say, no, I love my trees, got to stay. But people are removing trees to be able to go solar. So number 3 reason, a lot of people think that, solar is expensive or there's money out of pocket. It is actually easier to go solar, and I'm going to demonstrate this today. It's actually easier to go solar than it is to switch from Sprint to AT&T or to go from AT&T to Verizon. No cost out of pocket, no upfront cost. You get fixed, transparent payments at or below today's utility prices. You guys are going to see this slide again in just a few moments, and we're going to cover more deep on how to present it to the customer. But I just want to, and you're going to see a lot of redundancy, and you're going to see a lot of things being repeated. Why? And you probably may have already gone through the boot camp, and you're hearing me say some of the same things a second or a third time. Well, that's how people learn. You think of every song that you have memorized or that you can sing along with or know the words to. It's not because you heard it one time and now you know it. It's because you played it 25 times and you learned it, right? So a lot of this is repetition. You're going to want to commit some of these things to memory. Things you want to commit to memory: own your own power, right? At a price per month less than you're currently buying energy from. I mean, have that be a staple, elevator pitch to somebody that hey, I'm in the solar business. Did you know that you can actually own your own power for a price less than you're buying it from your energy company? And I'm going to change that slide to say currently buying energy to currently renting energy from your local utility. No cost out of pocket, fixed transparent payments at or below today's utility prices. Important to say at or below today's utility prices. You're going to see some extreme examples of savings for some people. You're going to see hardly any savings for others. Short term, but long term, you're going to see some major savings. But people might say, well, my electric bill's 200 and I can go solar for 190. I thought I could save money. Well, you're saving 5% today, but that might equate to $25,000 over the next 20 years, right? We're going to talk about why some people save more than others, because it has to do with what they're being charged from the utility company. It has to do with what sunlight they have exposed. It's going to have to do with the efficiency of their home, what kind of doors, and I mean, there's so many things that come into play here. Our job, though, is going to be, I mentioned we're advocates for the mass adoption of residential solar nationwide. One of the things we're going to share with you today, and you're going to see, is there are some things that you're going to be able to do for people's homes to make them more energy efficient, so that we can actually lower their consumption. I'm going to profile my working example. I'm going to show you some things on when I went solar, and how I'm actually getting credits every month as opposed to just an even break-even point, and share that kind of with you. And you're going to be able to share these strategies and stuff with your customers. Another huge reason, and this is one of the closes that we're going to train on today, but increased property value. National average 4.1% increase in property value. Now, that's not SunSmart saying that. There's actually been research done. Zillow did some market research. I'm going to show you some articles that have been written. I mean, you can pretty much bet the bank on the 4.1% nationwide. Here in Florida, the average is 4%. In Orlando, it's 4.6%. So real quick, think about this. If a solar system costs $20,000, okay, and this is a close, and we'll dial this in, but I just want to give you guys some food for thought. If somebody's spending $20,000 or more, I mean, some of these systems get pretty expensive depending upon the size, but let's say you got a $20,000 solar system and the federal government's covering $5,200 of the cost. That leaves you $14,800 roughly that you're out of pocket, that you're paying for with money you were already sending the utility company anyway, stretched out over 25 years at say 1.49%. But your home's worth maybe $300,000 and we increase it by 4%. Okay. So we just increased your property value by 12. So $20,000 solar system brought down to 14.8 because of the tax credit, but we increased your property value by 12. Your net cost to go solar might be 2,800 bucks. Again, with money you get to pay for that with money you're already sending your utility company, and you get to send less in every month, right? These are all the reasons why people go solar. You're going to want to learn these. And if you can just show people one or more of these items, this is how you get people to say yes to going solar. And of course, the fifth and final reason, environmental impact. Um, you know, probably one of the most valuable reasons to go solar. And again, not going to make a political statement. Whether you believe in global warming, don't believe in global warming, you cannot argue that if we can reduce the rate we burn fossil fuels, I mean, that can't be a bad thing, right? I mean, less CO2 emissions. I personally don't believe, cows emit a tremendous amount of CO2 gases. But here's the thing: if we can reduce it, can't be a bad thing, right? So number 5, huge reason why people go solar. Here's the thing, and we're going to do a presentation a little bit and show you how to present to a customer. You're going to ask the customer why they want to go solar, and they're going to give you one of these reasons, and that's the one you're going to dial in on to be able to help close the deal. So what I want to do, I want to explain traditional power. I know you guys are all BidPoint reps, and you probably understand power better than anybody. But your customer doesn't, and you want to be able to kind of dumb this down. There is a misconception in the solar arena from customers. Number one, customers think that if they go solar and the grid goes down, they have power. Not true. We're going to cover that in a little bit in detail. But if the grid goes down, they go down too, because they're part of the grid. Okay. The other misconception is people think that they're actually running their houses on solar. They are not. You are not running your house on solar. You're running your house on the power grid. You're getting net energy credits based on the solar that you're producing on your rooftop, and we're gonna talk about that. We do have a YouTube channel, SunSmart America. These videos are up on it. We're going to be adding to those videos. I think we only have just a handful of videos up there, but we're going to be adding a lot more videos. We do a lot of YouTube marketing, a lot of Facebook marketing. We're actually going to put some of our marketing videos up on that channel, and some things like we're doing here. We're going to be getting a little bit more active on YouTube, and our YouTube channel is going to grow. But I'm going to play a video here in just the next few minutes, and I apologize. It's very elementary. If you've already been through our boot camp, you've already seen it, but I think it's important that you get a really good, and you probably already have it as a BidPoint rep, that you get a really good understanding of how the power grid works. And so we're gonna take a trip back to like 1st or 2nd grade. That's what this video looks like. It looks like something you watched like way back when. But very, very informative. I'm gonna kill my video feed just temporarily, and then I'm gonna be back right after we watch this video. So give me 1 second here.
Here's a question for you. How many people does it take to turn on a light bulb? The answer seems simple. Just walk into a dark room, flip a switch, and instantly you can see, right? Well, the truth is there's a lot more to generating and delivering electrical power than you've probably imagined. Hi, I'm Lee Patrick Sullivan with Energy Now, and this Energy 101 video explains the system used to generate electricity. And it also explains what it really takes to turn on a light bulb. In order to understand energy, we first need to start at the source, literally. Mother Nature provides the natural resource we use to generate power. From natural gas to coal, ocean tides to mountain winds, the energy we need to create electricity must first be mined, harnessed, or collected from the earth. Some of these resources are finite, including fossil fuels like coal and oil, but others are unlimited, like solar or wind power. But a lump of coal or a strong breeze alone won't create the power that turns on your light. For every energy source, a chemical or mechanical process is required to turn it into usable electricity. Every day, researchers work to find innovative ways to use our limited resources, process raw materials, harness renewables more efficiently, and find entirely new energy sources. Today, the majority of America's electricity comes from thermal power plants. Fuels like coal, natural gas, biomass, and uranium are used to heat water until it produces steam, which powers a turbine and generates electricity. That steam turns propeller like blades around a rotor inside the turbine. This turning rotor connects to a main shaft, which spins magnets with a coil inside a generator. It's the generator inside a turbine that converts mechanical energy into electric energy and creates electricity. Steam is an efficient method of producing electricity because the water can be recycled and reused as it changes back and forth between liquid and gaseous states. Transporting electricity from the power plant to your home is an entirely different process. Current technology cannot cost effectively store large amounts of electricity. So, significant challenges exist when it comes to transferring that electricity across long distances. Just enough electricity has to be generated to meet demand at all times and be transmitted through power lines to reach your light switch. Too much or too little power can crash the transmission system and cause a blackout. That's why a complex mix of logistics, management, and infrastructure is needed to transmit electricity from power generators to consumers. Enter the electricity grid, also known as simply the grid. The North American electricity grid is actually made of four large grid systems: the Western grid, the Eastern grid, the Texas grid, and a grid covering the Canadian province of Quebec. These independent regional networks of power plants and transmission lines carry electric energy at high voltage within their area to local utilities. There are very limited links between the four grids, which means electricity generated from a wind turbine in West Texas cannot reach an apartment building in New York
Forget
City.
about it.
For electricity to move through one of the four grids, its voltage must first be increased by a device called a transformer. Then the electricity can travel long distances across high voltage transmission lines. These high voltage lines are generally strung between giant metal towers. They stretch for miles from power plants to local substations in each neighborhood. You've probably seen substations along the side of the road and wonder what they do. Well, their job is stepping down electric voltages from levels as high as 765,000 volts closer to the 110 volts you use in your home. The electricity from the power line on your street passes through another transformer, which steps down the voltage once more, and then it travels along the line into your house. From there, the electricity enters your breaker box, and it is then distributed to light sockets and outlets. All you have to do is flip a switch. So, as you can see, from the raw materials to the power lines on your street, there's so much more to the electricity ecosystem than meets the eye.
I was particularly, I remember the first time I saw that, it was shocked to learn that Texas has their own grid. I don't know if they're, they've been planting the seed for a long time. I wonder if that has to do with their strategy. Um, the, you know, I share that with you because it's important to understand so you can explain really the inefficiency of power, because solar makes things, it just makes sense. We've been heating and cooling and powering our homes for over 100 years the same way. If you think about it, none of us really do anything the same way, or have the same communications or even music or all the different things that we, television, the flat screens on our wall versus the big boxes. I mean, go back and look at what we have today versus what our parents or our parents' parents had, right? 2 generations ago. But yet our parents' parents still powered their home the same way we do today. Technology is changing. There is a better way, and you guys are going to be part of helping, get solar mainstream. It's happening. In fact, the 2020s is going to be known as the decade of solar. So let me go ahead and pull up how solar power works. You so so net metering is what makes everything work in solar. Um, we're going to put PV panels or photovoltaic solar panels are going to be put on somebody's roof, and there's going to be a photovoltaic reaction that takes place, and it's going to create DC electricity. That DC electricity is going to be run down through conduit down the side of the house into an inverter box. And in that inverter box, it's going to convert it into AC or alternating current electricity. That's what we run our houses off of. You're going to use what you need or produce first, meaning you want to look at net metering as a odometer. You think about the meter running on an old time taxi cab. We don't even have meters anymore, right? We have Uber. But net metering. So when you go solar, or when your customer goes solar, the power company is going to come out, switch out that meter, the one directional meter that it was years ago that they started putting smart meters. Remember in the olden days where the guy used to have to walk through the neighborhood and he was reading the meter to be able to determine how much power you use to send you a bill, and then they replaced it with smart meters, and everybody went freaking out about it because they would be able to determine whether or not somebody's home or not because they could read it remotely. um, the power company is now going to come out and put a bi-directional meter on. And what do I mean by bi-directional? Well, you're going to get credit for the kilowatt hours that you produce on your rooftop. So you're going to produce power on your rooftop, all right? And if you're using power during the day and you're producing power during the day, the meter's not really going to move. If you overproduce, let's say you're at work during the day and things go back to normal and you're not working from home or whatnot, sun's hitting your rooftop producing a tremendous amount of power, and all that power then is flowing to the grid, and the power company is keeping track of how much power you're sending them through the net meter, and you're storing up energy credits with the utility. So you're getting a kilowatt hour credit based on the power that you're producing on your rooftop. And then in the evening, when the sun goes down and you're powering, you got the TV on, you got the lights on, cooking, cleaning, doing whatever you're doing. Now you're starting to draw on those energy credits, and the meter's running the other direction. That is how solar systems work. It's because of net metering where you're producing power, and then the power company, you're still getting power from the power grid. The difference is you're sending power to the power grid, and you're getting credit for credit, dollar for dollar, if you will. And so when the gentleman mentioned Florida Power and Light is going solar, yes, lots of power companies have put solar in large fields, and there's co-ops and stuff now that have large solar production, because at the end of the day, you're just getting power delivered to your home. If you don't, and if you're allowing them to provide you solar, they may have a little bit lower cost, but they're still delivering it to you. And I want to pull up a bill so we can show what that delivery is. And I imagine you guys probably, again, know most of this or already have most of this information, being the fact that you're in BidPoint. But this is a snapshot of a utility bill here in Central Florida. Rather large bill, 3,300 kilowatts. But what we want to pay close attention to, oops, wrong slide. What we want to pay close attention to is you can see what the customer charges are, and the fact that they're being charged certain kilowatt hour for the first 1,000 kilowatts. They're being charged 8.319 cents. Hopefully you guys can see that good. And if they use more than 1,000 kilowatts that month, then their price goes up to 10.08 cents. But right below that, you'll see a fuel charge, right? You'll see first 1,000 kilowatts, there's a 3.067 delivery charge for that. And then if for above the 1,000, there's a higher delivery charge. Well, look at that. That's 4.067 cents. That's over 40% for a delivery charge on above and beyond if they use more than 1,000 kilowatts in a month. And so the power company is delivering this power. There is no way to determine whether or not you're getting wind power, solar power. There's just no, fossil fuel power burning in a power plant. You've got no way of knowing what kind of power is actually being piped in through the transformer and then ultimately into your home, right? The only way you could, and you still couldn't technically run your house on solar because you need a way to store power. But let's say you were going to build a cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and you wanted solar to power your home. You have to have a means to store it. So you, in essence, put a battery system in, and then that way you'd have power at night. And then your solar system would actually charge the batteries, and then you would run your house off of the batteries. In that circumstance, if you go with a battery backup system with solar and the grid goes down, say you're in a neighborhood and you're tied to the utility grid and you're teamed up with net metering, if the grid goes down, you go down. But if you have a battery backup system, you're storing power, you can in essence still run your household even if the grid goes down, because the solar panels, technically you're not running off the grid anymore. The solar panels are charging the battery and the battery is charging the home, or powering the home. So those are the way, that's the way solar energy works in the US, and the way that things are set up. You become a partner with your utility. In fact, one of the documents you're going to have your customers sign is a interconnection agreement, where it says basically they're becoming a business partner with the utility. And so they're producing power on their rooftop. They're going to get a dollar for dollar credit on that. And then any excess power that they produce, they're going to get net metering credits. Now, when we put these things together, we're putting these together, and I'm going to show you here shortly a proposal. We want to get as close to 100% offset as possible. Not every home can go 100% offset. Some homes don't have the roof space, or they're cut up, or maybe they use more power than they can produce, but you might get a 60% offset or a 90% offset. Here's the one thing you need to know. Some solar is better than no solar. And real quick, I'm just going to pull up a snapshot of my most recent bill just to kind of show this. I still run my house off of the grid, but I have solar on it. And so this is a synopsis where you'll see I'm paying $17.28 a month. And that's for my OUC electric service. That's my meter service charge. I'll never get away from that. And along with the city of St. Cloud taxes, municipal taxes, and gross receipts tax, right? So total $17.28. What you'll see is I have credits for my electric net consumption and my amount added to PV Bank. And then you'll see this is a different bill than the bill that we were just looking at. This shows non-fuel and fuel. But when you look at, if you look at my snapshot, OUC supplied electric, here's the power that the OUC supplied me with, and here's the power that I supplied them with. And that's where I'm getting that credit. They supplied 943, I supplied 1052. So that's where my credit comes in. Net consumption amount for this particular billing cycle was $10.72. That's been going on for month after month after month. And we just came through some of the hottest months in Florida through summertime. And I've got a banked balance as of September 29th of $443 with them. Now, that's a rare circumstance to see somebody getting credit like that. I bought a home that I knew I was going to be rehabbing. I put a new AC system in, changed out all my lights to LED, changed out my hot water tank. I mean, I've done some things to make my house extremely efficient. We're still doing changes to it. We're remodeling. We just put a new kitchen in. I don't even have the floors on in behind me. I'm not, but the point is I'm going to show you how I planned it, because I based everything on my current consumption. And we're going to put some deals together here in a moment. I'm going to show you guys some working examples of when you put a bill or upload a bill into the system and you put a design together, what that equates to as far as savings for the customer. And then if the customer wants to do some things to make their home more energy efficient, then they're going to start seeing credits like this. You know, these credits that get paid out once a year. Some utility companies will pay them monthly if they're over $50. OUC, or Orlando Utilities Commission, which is my utility company, they pay out one time a year in November, same time taxes, property taxes and stuff are assessed, is when I'll get my check from OUC. And it looks like it's going to be around the $400 range. And I'm going to take that $400. I'm going to immediately apply it toward my solar loan. But my average bill when I went solar was $293. My solar payment's $220. So I'm saving 70 some dollars a month. Plus I got the commission on my own solar deal, so to speak. And, and I'm banking up a balance on it on an annual basis. I'm actually producing more than I'm consuming. And you can usually get around 115, 120% offset. Anything above and beyond that, the utility company by law really doesn't have to give you, and every state's different. For those of you guys that are in Georgia, unfortunately, Georgia, what's the big power company there, Rick? Georgia Power.
Georgia Power.
So they announced, when was it, like 2 months ago, that they had already reached their pinnacle for the allotment for net metering. And so anybody that had gone solar starting in like August or September, you weren't getting credit anymore because, however, there's lobbying that's done. You got to realize these power companies have had a really good thing going for a really long time. And now someone's challenging their business model, and they're getting, they're in survival mode. They're trying to protect, 100+ year old business model that is starting to crumble because new technologies moved in. It's why companies like Florida Power Light are trying feverishly to get people into solar contracts to get power delivered to them over an extended period of time, because it's contractually obligated. Think about that. You don't have a contract with your power company. You can, because of the deregulation, you can go with whomever you want. And I know you guys are real familiar with all of that, but that's where we're at with solar and why it just makes sense. And so, yeah, go ahead, Dwayne.
So follow up on that. If you get the solar panels with the generator, or I think you call it battery, that it charges. So then if you go that route, then you would not be sending electricity to the grid. You would only be sending it to your battery. Is that right? Or does it go both places?
Well, it would go both places. So if your battery is filled to capacity, and you're still producing power, then any excess power, the net metering law still comes into effect. The only difference is you're going to, before you go to your utility company for power, you're going to pull on your battery first. But these batteries are smart batteries. I'll give you an example, Dwayne. Let's say, the power goes out and, your battery is full and it's dusk, right? Sun's going down, and you start running your house off the battery. You've got power, nobody else does. You go to bed, right? You still have power, nobody else does. In the middle of the night, you've depleted the battery. You might not need much power right now, or you got very little power in your battery, and the utility company is working on the line and they power the line back up. Okay. All of a sudden, everybody around you has power. Now you have power, and your battery is a smart system. Your battery's not waiting for the sun to come up to charge it. The battery's going to go grab all that power from the utility company, and it's going to charge. It's going to start charging the battery based on the battery, based on the fact that it's got access to a power supply. You're storing power. Battery system is now storing power. So you might be pulling on that from the electric company, and this is where that net metering comes into effect. Because if you're pulling power now to charge your battery from the utility, then when the sun comes up, right, then any excess power that you're creating, you're sending that to the utility. The meter's going the other way.
Gotcha.
And so one thing you just need to understand is you're producing power on your rooftop, and you're either using it 1-for-1 credit, or you're sending it to them, or you're using more than you're producing and they're sending you excess power. But it's a meter that runs either this way, or it's a meter that runs either that way. If there's a battery involved, you're just storing power. So before you go to utility, you're going to your supply first.
Quick
Right.
question, Chad. Do we sell
Yeah.
the batteries? Can we get a battery as a part of the solar system?
Absolutely. We do sell batteries. Um, most of the time, batteries will deplete any savings that someone will see. So if you're selling solar, I encourage people to, and you have many instances where people want to do solar and battery at the same time. We've got one of our business partners, one of our founders here, Bobby Wallace, is an electrical engineer. He does a great training on battery and battery systems and how they work and why they work. There is a shortage in batteries right now in the U.S. You cannot really get a Tesla battery. I literally, I hate to even say this, but we have people waiting for Tesla batteries from last October that still don't have them. There's a short supply on a lot of things. Tesla is manufacturing them. Tesla is providing them to their customers first, and if there's any excess batteries, they're supplying them to the market. But we've they're just some of these battery systems are very difficult to get. Generac's coming out with a new generation battery. We've installed quite a few Generac batteries this year. What I like to tell people is, if you want to go battery, that's fantastic. You're probably not going to get a battery at the same time that we're going to do your solar install. So let's go ahead and do your solar install first, and maybe keep things separate, because we're getting kind of chasing a rabbit here in this story. But if you permit a deal that has a battery in it, and we can't procure a battery by the time we're ready to install solar, we actually have to go back to and revise the plans, submit new plans to the county, and remove the battery. So there's a lot of extra steps in play just to be able to put solar so that somebody can start to realize savings. What I would encourage everyone to do, and you're just going to learn this by just, again, kind of being in the water, swimming, sell solar first, and then get them as a customer. You can always go back to them 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whenever, and upsell them a battery. If they start talking to you about a battery, let them know that, yes, we sell batteries, and you can even show them what that will do. And I'll show you some battery examples today when we can quote a battery. But battery systems are not showing up timely. And what it does is it kicks the savings 5 months, 6 months down the road. I told you that we had a customer that's still waiting since last October for a Tesla battery. We ended up going back to the engineering, removing the battery from the plans, submitting plans without a battery to the county for approval, because if we install a solar system that has a battery on the plans, we're not going to pass inspection if we only put in solar, right? So then we had to do all those changes to be able to install his solar so we can start seeing the savings. And then we'll have to permit the battery later when the battery comes in. We'll have to keep it separate. So that's, when you guys come across stuff like that, that's where a phone call to our office is going to really help. We've got people that will aid and assist you in that. Batteries make things a little more complicated. They're not, I wish it was easier than that. I wish there was no short supply of batteries, but I would encourage you to garner customers, focus on solar sales. You can always add a battery, and some of the battery technology that's coming is amazing. The battery technology right now, I mean, there are companies out there. A lot of people like Tesla and the Tesla name brand, but there are batteries out there that are far superior. And we've been on some trainings, and we're waiting for Generac's supposed to be releasing a battery at the end of this year. That's they're calling it their Tesla killer, so to speak. But it's going to have things to where, if you've got an electric car and you drive it to work and you charge it at work, you can come home, plug it in your garage, and your battery will siphon. You can program it. Hey, I need whatever percentage I need to get to work. And you can offload or take the power that's in your battery, send it to the grid and get a credit for it, have enough left in the car to drive to work the next day, plug it in at work for free, charge your car, drive home, siphon the power out of your battery, send it to the grid, get a credit for it. I mean, those are some of the things that are coming from a technology standpoint with batteries. And so little stories like that might help you have your customer push the pause button on a battery. But then we also have customers that are adamant about it. I mean, we did just do a battery install in Tallahassee. And we are waiting on just to give you an idea, we're waiting on a firmware or some kind of an update with Generac to be able to turn the system on. So we installed a system, a month ago in Tallahassee, and the guy can't even use it because we're waiting on Generac to do some kind of a systems update. So,
Chad, do batteries, are they eligible for the tax credit also?
absolutely. Yeah. If your battery system is considered part of solar and energy storage, you get a full 26% tax credit on batteries, whether you buy them with your solar system, whether you buy them separate.
Cool.
Yep.
Chad, just a little side question, I guess. Do you guys sell an independent solar generator? Just like a person would go to Lowe's and buy a generator, but instead of it running off of gas, it runs off of solar. I've heard that they're out there. I don't know. Are they a part of what we sell?
I don't know of any kind of a solar generator. I try to be pretty up to speed on what's available. Anything that, I don't know how a generator would run off of solar. Because technically you want to store the power, so you're storing it and then you're running. So again, when you have a battery system, you're not running your house off the solar, you're running your house off the battery, and the solar is just charging the battery because of the DC and AC conversion. But I've not heard of anything like a generator that runs off solar, but I will look into that. That would be neat, I think. So very cool. We're getting ready to do a project in North Carolina to where the utility company wanted to charge a customer. He's building he bought like 11 acres on the side of a mountain, and they want to charge him like $50,000 to get power to his property. And we're doing a huge project there. He's building a home right now, but we're going to be powering it 100% solar, and he's not going to tie to the grid. So it's going to be battery backup system, solar panels on the rooftop. And this gets into where you end up running your house off the battery, and you're just converting the energy and storing the power in the battery from the panels, but no grid connection, which is possible. If you are connected to the grid, you cannot unplug from the grid. They will not allow you to do it. So, but if you're building something that doesn't have power, you do not have to go to the power company. You can be self-sustaining or self-contained, so to speak. So these are all really awesome questions. We got some more?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Cameron from Colorado Springs. So is there like a solar kit? For example, you install, like somebody has a preference not to install on the roof. I have enough lawn space. Let's put it outside in the yard. And let's say I sell that house. Can I take that kit with me and move it to the next house? Do you guys provide something like that?
So we do ground mount systems, but just to give you an idea, that would be like putting a fence around your property, and then when you move, taking the fence. These things are not portable. You could probably take the panels, but the mounting systems that we're putting in are specifically here in Florida, they're wind rated, right? I mean, they have to withstand hurricane force winds in Florida. Don't know what the rules and regs are, what the code requirements are in places like Colorado, but if you did a ground mount system, like here in Florida, the poles that we put in the ground, they go 6 feet in the ground, full of concrete, big, huge, aluminum pipes that are hollow, and they go 6 feet in the ground, and we fill them full of concrete, and then we strap everything to it. So we can do ground mount systems, but and again, the panels you could take with you if you wanted to, but we're increasing property value, and you already got the tax credit. So if you move, pass the savings on to the homeowner, or maybe charge a premium for that property and just buy solar on the next house. Good question. And we can show some examples of some ground mount systems and things. Ground mount systems are more expensive because you have to create the structure, as opposed to just going ahead and strapping to the already existing roof truss, right? So there's just a tremendous amount of upcharge, if you will, if you're going to a ground mount system. But we do them, and there are people that there are people that want that. it diminishes the savings. Keep in mind, not everybody is driven by savings. Savings is going to get you a lot of deals. But sometimes people just want to go solar and they want what they want and they don't care how much it costs. There are those people. Just that comes into really understanding or knowing what your customers' wants are. It's one of the first things we ask customers. I'm going to show you that in a little bit when we get into the presentation, because you must find out what makes your customer tick, because they'll give you everything to close them with if you allow it to, if you ask the right questions. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So what I want to do right now, if we don't have any other questions, do we have another question?
Just one quick one. I don't know if this is a naive question or not. Would the solar panels maybe delay a roof replacement because there's less?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. A lot less damage to a roof if solar panels are on the roof. Typical asphalt roof shingle will last 25 years. A lot of warranties are 20-25 years. You'll see another 8-10 years, specifically in the area where the solar is, because in essence, and your house will become more efficient because the sun, think about this. If you ever go to the beach, a lot of people put tents up on the beach, umbrellas up on the beach. Why? To create shade. Well, there's no shade on your roof, but those solar panels are 4 or 5 inches off of the roof. What did you just create by putting solar panels on your roof? You created shade underneath it, right? So your roof is not as exposed to the elements in the portion that solar has been installed.
Another sales point though, right?
What's that?
That's another sales point, possibly. That saves replacing the roof and you have shade on the roof.
Absolutely. And roofing and solar go together like peanut butter and chocolate. We have partnerships with roofing companies, and we have sales reps that are sales reps for us and sales reps for roofing companies. Our top sales rep, a guy by the name of Brandon Rue, I kid you not, making $60,000-$70,000 a month as a sales rep selling roofs and selling solar. We just did an amazing system on an old tile roof that he sold, but he goes into a neighborhood where there was a storm and he replaces the roof, and pretty much 9 out of 10 roofing customers become solar customers because, hey, we're putting a new roof on, why not go solar? And he's here in Florida, and again, solar just makes sense. So if you guys posture this correctly, and I'm going to give you everything you need to close 100% of the time. Doesn't mean you'll close 100% of the time. There are really strange people out there that I just don't understand why they don't get solar, but there are people that say no. I can't understand it. I couldn't get solar on my house fast enough once I learned everything that I learned. So our goal in all of this is to educate you guys so that you can educate your consumer. Because if the customer understands how all of this works, they will sell themselves solar. You don't have to sell it to them. I mean, you're going to sell it to them, right? But if you do this correctly, and I'm going to show you that here in just a little bit. So,
Chad, I have another question.
Awesome.
So, there's insurance on your roof, right? You get hailed on, hurricane, you get it replaced. With the solar panels being on the roof now, what kind of insurance coverage, if any, that customer is going to enjoy?
Yeah, very good question. So, just like if you have put gutters on your house and a tree falls and takes out, part of the roof and the gutter, they're going to replace the roof and the gutter. If you had solar panels on there and they take out some of your solar panels, the roof and the gutter, you've got a deductible, and that stuff's going to be covered by your homeowners. I mean, once you strap it to the house, it becomes part of the house. You don't necessarily always have to, your home is insured based on its dwelling, and your home is insured based on its contents. So, there's been some instances where someone, again, it depends on what the home is insured for, right? I mean, if your home's worth 400,000 and it's insured for 200,000, you want to make sure your home is adequately insured and that it covers it. But, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to add the full cost of the solar system because of the full cost of replacement. We've never had to do that. From an insurance perspective with the utility company, anything under, and every utility company is different. Some utility companies are like 10.8. Some utility companies are 11.47 kilowatt system where they require tier 2 insurance, or they want you to have $1 million umbrella. Here in Florida, if you have a pool, $1 million umbrella, in addition to your $300,000 minimum liability on your already existing coverage, you can get $1 million umbrella for $201 a month, or $201 a year, excuse me. And if you don't have a pool, it's like $150 a year. So, 10, 12 bucks a month, you can get that $1 million umbrella. We usually cover it as a company for the first year, and that tier 2 insurance is required by the utility. And here's what it is. It's, if I'm the utility company, Duke Energy, and you go solar and you're now a PTO or a permission to operate partner, and your system is now part of my grid, and there's a problem somewhere and I got to go troubleshoot it, and I got to send a technician out, and that technician sets foot on your property. Most utility companies, if it's a tier 2 system bigger than the average size residential, they require you to have $1 million coverage, because they want to make sure if somebody slips and falls or hurts himself or whatever, that you have that liability in place. Keep in mind, I can't stress this enough. When somebody decides to go solar, you need to let them know that you just became a business partner with your utility. You are no longer a customer. You are now a business partner with the utility company. You are now producing your own power, and you're producing power for them. And by law, they have to give you credit. So if you're entering into that business relationship with the utility, you might have to have a couple of other things in place to be able to get all the benefit. And if it's a bigger system than the average size system, and it's a tier 2 system, you might have to put some extra insurance in place. But when we evaluate the savings by showing them this proposal, they'll be able to determine whether or not it makes sense from a math standpoint. And that's all we do, is we show what you're paying now, what you could be paying. Any questions? I mean, there's savings. If there's no savings, we're not even going to waste our time to present it, right? Unless the customer says, I don't care if it's more expensive, I want it, which never happens. But so that's as it pertains to insurance. But homeowners is going to cover your panels if something were to happen, hail damage, what have you. These things are pretty hardy. Not seen one damaged in a storm or anything as of yet. So good questions. Awesome
Thanks.
questions. All right. Any others? And we'll move on.